Yesterday, Lord Ricketts was giving us evidence with Lord Hague, and he said that we need about 5 or 6 UK-based staff in every EU capital. Do you think Lord Ricketts was right?
Well, we currently have, I think, 4 or 5 UK-based staff.
Ricketts said 1 to 2. Yeah.
Well, what we want to achieve is greater representation in other EU capitals, and that's why we're putting another 50 across the network.
So do you disagree with Lord Ricketts? Do you think the 50 will be sufficient, or do you think you'll need
more
resources?
50 is what we're doing. We think that's a good increase, and we're very confident in the abilities of our officials, their dynamism and energy, and we think that they'll be able to do a great job.
I don't doubt their dynamism and energy. It's just in terms of the bigger job. If we think 50 more diplomats will be sufficient, and how much extra do you think that will cost as well?
I think, I was get back to my point about I think the 50 will be a great addition to our strength in around European capitals, and I think that that's something the Foreign Affairs Committee should, in principle, be applauding, rather than looking askance at it. It will have a cost. I'm seeing a figure here of another £8 million. But
if I could be
just defer to Simon, does that relate to the 50?
North or south of 350 million quid a week, Foreign Secretary?
Well, that, my dear Mr. Gevin, you're asking a typically polemical question there, if I may say. That obviously will not return to UK control until such time as we leave the EU. But that is a project on which we are also engaged. Yeah. That is a project in which we are also, as you know, engaged and getting our message across. We think very
successfully. Stick to the details. Sorry, Stephen. Could we stick to them?
Sure. I'll let the Foreign Secretary finish up. So
I finish.
Okay. Well, look, you mentioned if I think the 50 more diplomats, okay, there seems to be some difference of opinion with Lord Ricketts there. What about your earlier remarks that you made that we'd still be part of the Brussels talks? How do you see that panning out?
No, obviously, the UK will still be represented at the EU, but UKREP will no longer be within the Council chamber, but we will continue to interact with our friends and partners across the Channel, as you'd expect.
But do you think we'll still be part of those talks? Still part of the EU 27? Are you planning on a new format being set up?
No. For the avoidance of misunderstanding, Mr. Gittins, I imagine UKREP will continue to be a very substantial UK representation, because obviously we will want to be engaging with our friends and partners. But as you will readily appreciate, we will not be in the Council chamber or in the Parliament or any of the other bodies.
And do you think the permanent representation then will be bigger or smaller than it is at the moment?
Well, I think we have no plans, as far as I understand it, at the moment to increase the permanent representation, but it is already a pretty large body of very, very capable men and women, as I'm sure you know.
Okay. Can I just ask one more question, Mr. Chairman? Obviously, there's going to be a big change with our relationship with the 27 other member states. This isn't a question, obviously, for officials, but for you, Foreign Secretary. How much planning was done on this and what we need before June 2016?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, before June 2016, in other words, before the EU referendum, I don't detect evidence of any planning that.
So you didn't. I said it's not a question for you.
But you will readily appreciate, Mr. Gittins, I was not then a member of the government.
No, but you were a senior member of the Leave campaign. I mean, I, as an independence campaigner, had campaigned on this. We failed, but the plans were there. Were there no plans in place prior to June 2016, or no thoughts taking place about what this might mean for the foreign office?
So that's really a question for the Leave campaign. But
Can I move on from that?
You answer on behalf of the Leave campaign.
No, I don't, Foreign Secretary. You're here as Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and Northern Ireland, not as a spokesman for the Leave campaign. So can we stop that?
Yes, of course. It would just be nice to get the
I understand, but I think
background and his thoughts on this.
I think that's refighting an old battle, which I think we shall move on.
Which you lost.
May I?
Not in Scotland, Foreign Secretary.
We approach our friends and partners in a spirit of humility here. We make an unconditional commitment to their security. We obviously feel that we have a lot to offer and a lot to give, and historically we always have done. But this is really not something where we want to push ourselves forward, Mr. Chairman. It's something that we're happy to discuss in a friendly and in a collegiate way. We want to be useful. We want to be bolted on, if that can be appropriate. We want to be, as it were, a flying buttress, supportive of the EU Kirk, but we're not particularly fussy about exactly how the masonry interlocks, if I can put it that way.
Former Foreign Secretary Lord Hague said that the Political and Security Committee was key. There is no way around that. If you are not on the agenda, on the agenda and politics of the Political and Security Committee, it is very difficult to influence on a daily basis. Now, I understand that PSC meets twice a week and the Committee of Permanent Representatives meets once a week. And Lord Ricketts, as well as Lord Hague, also emphasised the importance of being in the room. Now, Baroness Ashton has also used the same phrase when she described her experience as being the High Representative and Commissioner for our country, about being in the room. Foreign Secretary, is it our intention, even if we leave the EU, to be in the room of the Political and Security Committee and the Foreign Affairs Council and the Committee of Permanent Representatives?
I think these are very relevant and pertinent questions. I can tell you that at the moment there is no government position, or we haven't decided what we want to seek. I've tried to give a general account of how it would work. My own feeling is that it would be very difficult for us to remain in any EU institution or in any EU body that went beyond the purely intergovernmental. Just give you guidance for the committee intellectually, so you can see where I'm coming from. Where it is possible to create intergovernmental structures that do not entail any role, for instance, for the European Court of Justice, any federal machinery, then the UK support, UK participation in that new structure may of course be very desirable. We don't necessarily want to go to them, our friends and partners, now with an elaborate structure for how the UK will participate in common security policy, CSFP, CSDP, and all the rest of it, when that would put us in the position, as they say in Brussels, of demandeurs. They would say, well, you want to be integrated into our arrangements in the following way. Well, as it happens, we have perfectly good set of systems for cooperating with third countries on CSFP and CSDP, and we do it like this. And that's what you're going to get. And I don't think that necessarily would be in the interests of the 27 or in the interests of the UK. So I think at this stage we are content to begin a discussion with our friends and partners without spelling out in detail on what we insist upon.
Well, perhaps we might get the papers that are under debate this afternoon at some point, and that might give us some more information about what the government's position is.
Mr. Gates, I think we'll leave the Foreign Secretary.
I've been very frank with you, Mr. Gates, and tried to explain our thinking on this. The UK is a major player in these areas. As you will appreciate, this is something where we must be humble. We must accept that our friends and partners will want us to continue to be useful to the joint European effort, but we don't want now to spell out to them exactly what we think is necessary, because that is a matter for them
to decide.
Can I ask you
specifically then, what is the proposal that we have with regard to the European Defence Agency and the European Defence Fund after, if we leave the European Union? What specific proposals do we have?
Well, we will continue to participate in all such agencies as they may be useful to the UK. That is something that is for decision and for negotiation. And if it becomes impossible as a result of our ceasing to be on the European Defence Agency, if it becomes impossible as a result of our ceasing to be members, what we will seek is that UK defence concerns are properly treated.
Can I just clarify?
How do you think people who voted to leave would respond to that? To respond to you saying that we're going to remain, so we'll be able to remain members of these defence agencies, even though we're not members of the EU?
What I said was that we will, it may be that is the negotiation, it may be that it is impossible for us to stay in either of those bodies in the way that we do now.
Can I just ask a point of precision, please? You quite understandably said that you didn't want to, as it were, situate the estimate and therefore place us as demandeur for the PSC. You've just effectively done that for the European Defence Agency. Do you think we should be members of bodies that at the moment require EU membership?
For the sake of absolute clarity, if I can answer Mr. Austin's, what we seek to achieve, irrespective of how we do it, is protection of British interests and to come out of the EU. That's what we're going to do.
Right.
But can I just ask, so you used a metaphor earlier about flying buttress. A flying buttress is no good unless it's attached to the church. It can't buttress anything unless it's attached to it. So how do you intend us to be attached to the European Union?
Well, as I said, I was speaking of the foot of the buttress is outside, and it's certainly true that the buttress helps to prop up the church. Exactly how the masonry interlocks is...
They have to touch.
They have to touch. But let me give you an example, Mr. Bryant. Perhaps I could...
Allow the Foreign Secretary to answer. Sorry.
Perhaps I could give you an example. On common foreign and security policy, there are about, I think, 18 European defence collaboration initiatives underway at the moment. And I think in at least a couple of them, the UK is in charge. We have command. We would have to see, and we'd have to work, and this is my point to Mr. Gates, we'd have to explore with our friends and partners to what extent they wanted us to remain committed to those joint ventures. I suspect that they would be very happy for us to be involved in some way. The exact structure, the way you do it, is yet to be determined, and yet to be determined on either side. What I would steer the committee away from is thinking that we could be in some way integrated into either into the PSC, to be totally frank with you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Tugendhat, or into any federal bodies of the EU in the way that we currently are. So what I'm inviting you to consider is that there could be a future in which, like a flying, imagine a flying buttress, supportive, contiguous, adjacent, useful, but not integrated. That's what I'm asking you to envisage. And
sorry, forgive me. So you're saying the buttress is British and the mass inside is being said in French and German. Can we move on?
The government paper on these issues, on future diplomacy after we leave the European Union, has 58 sections on the problems that will have to be addressed at that point, because there are many issues, such as the ones that you yourself, Foreign Secretary, have alluded to today, where we have won foreign policy arguments around the world through our membership and because of our membership of the European Union. That's in your own report. And then it has a very short section which says what the government then hopes we will achieve out of the negotiations in this area. When we had Lord Hague and Lord Ricketts before us yesterday, they both understood that report, and I think it's the common understanding of that report to suggest
that the government is seeking observer status in the Foreign Affairs Council in all the relevant meetings. As I understand it today, just for clarity, you're saying that is not the truth.
Well, no, I think I was being asked whether we wanted to be members of the PSC.
No, observer status, you were asked 3 times.
In the room.
Well, there are all sorts of ways in which we could make sure that we knew what was going on, whether we were in the room or outside the room. The important point is that we won't be members of the.
We understand that. Do you want observer status or not?
Well, if we're accorded, and let me go back to the very frank answer I gave to the committee chairman. We believe we have a lot to offer. We have massive experience in these areas. We are the European power that is most committed overseas. We are a global actor. It is very much in the interest of the EU to have us involved. Precisely how we do it, the exact nature of our relationship with our friends and partners is something for mutual discussion, whether we are going to be there in the room as observers or outside the room in some sort of Antici group, I think it used to be called. We will work out. But whatever happens, we will come up with a mechanism by which we can show, and this is the crucial point that was made in the Florence speech, and which has gone down so well in other European capitals, we can show our unconditional support for European security and defence. That is the crucial point that we need to get over. Exactly how we do it, exactly how the masonry of the Buttress interlocks with the church, that's for discussion. But we are going to be there and we are going to be supported.